Everything must change.
Straight Out University, Big John is the host with the plan. Time to wake the sleeping giant that lives in every man. Forget the ordinary path, that blueprint's outdated. We building legends here, totally self-created. You need the 4 pillars for total fulfillment. Money, muscle, frame in the game, that's the mission. Master your finances, forge your body, your mindset. Level up your influence, make them all respect. Yet, stop settling for a life that's just a faded dream. Time to build your empire, make your own world shine supreme. This is the goal, let's get to work. Yeah, Straight Out University.
What's good, everybody? Hope everybody's doing good today. Check it out. We got some stuff going on. Now, did we break down already? Am I already dealing with technical difficulties? Probably, as usual. Hey, it's me, my friend Albert, Big Albert. Man, you got to get me that technical guy, man. I'm having all kinds of problems. All right, as usual, I am gonna be doing me. And faltering as usual on this, but check it out. Today we're going to be talking about something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to be talking about the Oxnard Elementary School District and the fact that it's a complete wreck over there. And I'm going to be talking about that and saying, hey, as the school system, are we promoting mediocrity and that's good enough? Or are we challenging our educators as well as our districts in providing the highest and best education for our children? That's something that I want to talk about because it's just part of the Sunday issue, and we're going to get more into it. Let me go ahead and bring my special guest up. Where you at? I know you're here.
Hello.
Hola. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Michelle June. I'm so happy to be here again. It's a pleasure. I'm a singer, a songwriter. I am a business owner. I am a mother. I'm a wife. I've been called some other names, but that's for a different podcast. Thank you, Big John, for having me here. I'm so excited to talk with you as always.
Hey, as I feel about you, our conversations are spicy, and that's how they're supposed to be because you know what? We have opinions, right? I have an opinion, right, wrong, mostly right, not wrong. But, I try to be fair about my opinions, but I love to have them challenged for the simple reason is that I understand that I don't know everything, but I understand that I do know some things. And you know what? I'm okay with looking at things from a different perspective because I don't know everything. I'm not so well versed in the world that I know everything. And I love people like you who challenge me on the things that I am wrong about, which I don't know. I haven't come across.
I'm glad you can admit it today.
It's a challenge. I'm undefeated at this point, so it really doesn't.
I wouldn't say that. If you watched the last podcast,
well, there's
back a second. I got a couple bell rings. I know it.
No, you know what? I give credit where credit is due, but you can score a point in the game, but it doesn't mean you won the game.
Oh wow! I won that one.
You scored a point. You scored a point. I get it.
All
and
right.
that's why you
take it.
Definitely. But one of the things today that we're going to be talking about, like I said, which is the Oxnard Elementary School District and how they tend to do things. And I see this in society and this is my viewpoint. Okay. This is where I see things today. And I am older, definitely a lot older. And I've seen some things throughout my career. I used to work for the school systems, and I did 32 years working for the school system. And I was privy and seen things, and I was around people to hear things that not a lot of people would have been privy to. So I take the things that how I think based on those things that I've seen, observed, and watched over a 32-year period. So I've seen the balances change and how we've changed as a society moving toward things that I'll be honest with you, I can't resonate with for the simple reason is that it doesn't make sense to me from a point of just logical common sense. And I think that these are bad, but I want to point them out. So let's check this out. I'm going to bring this thing up. Again, asking me to do a lot for the simple reason is I can't do most things. All right, here we go. I'm going to bring this thing up. Where is it at? All right. Now, this is from the Oxnard Elementary School District. Now, what this is a press release that came out on the USA Today spotlighted Oxnard Elementary School District and by in supporting academic improvement, both reading and math between 2022 and 2025. Oxnard is one of only 11 California schools recognized by the Education Scorecard as the district as a district on the rise for our extraordinary dedication and results and progress our students have made compared to peer districts. Okay, it goes on to read a bunch of other fluff, and I call it fluff for this reason. It's not indicative of the overall contribution in which we're seeing in the Oxnard Elementary School District for this reason. We have an uptick. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that, hey, anytime we do better, a step forward is a positive step forward, not negative. But we have to be real about this. We have in mathematics in the Oxnard Elementary School District, we have an 8% uptick with this, what they're talking about right now. So they have increased mathematics up 8%, but yet we have a 77% failure rate in mathematics. So my contention here is, why in the hell are we talking about we've made an improvement when 77% of our kids are failing math? I don't get that. Why? I don't understand. I don't understand the clapping and the, hey, let me give some flowers here to a failing school district. I don't understand that. I mean, am I wrong for feeling this way, or should I feel positive about the 8%? I don't know.
I think there's a little bit of a gray area. There's like a couple of things going on here, because I think if you are a student who has always lived in the F zone and it's been years and years and years and it's just been F, 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 as soon as I get that F plus, you better believe I'm gonna be celebrating. And I think, like you said, you already mentioned, it's important to celebrate every win. I think your question is, are we celebrating it too much because it's still pretty mediocre? But there's a lot of studies around psychology about how the brain works. And the brain actually works better if you're happy than when you're negative, neutral, or stressed. And so celebrating people, that morale boost actually only encourages them to do better, only encouraging them to do another 8% or another 10%. And it actually is proven to just grow over time. So I think it's also psychological, and also people, like I said, who live a little bit in the dark all the time when you're dealing with a lot of things that I feel like Oxnard School District deals with, and those families and those children. 8% might feel like a mountain,
Well, there's a reality. Let's sprinkle a little bit of reality on this for the simple reason is that, yes, should we celebrate movement forward? Absolutely. But here's part of my problem and my vision of this, which is, how in the hell do we say, look, we're not doing good? And I don't believe that we should be celebrating things that should already be expected. Now, when I say celebrate, I'm saying let's put our failures out there for the rest of the world to see, to say, oh my God, we went from 79% failure rate to 77. That's not, to me, that's like, look, keep that in-house, go out to the schools and celebrate that for those kids that went, and I have a hard time even saying this, which is, if you go from an F minus to an F plus, okay, no, that's not celebrating. Like I always used to watch over the years, like I said, I did many years in the Oxnard Elementary School District, and at some point we started celebrating graduation or promotions, because they call it promotions now, from kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, from sixth grade to seventh, from eighth to high school. And I was like, I was always like, why in the hell are we celebrating that? You're supposed to graduate. You're supposed to promote from kindergarten to first grade. You're supposed to promote from sixth to seventh, from eighth to ninth. You have these like expectations, and I get it, because everybody does, and that sounds like a normal
like expectation that we should have of each other. But the true expectation is like there's the line of best fit, and there are people that fall below, and there are people that fall above, and that's the same for test scores across the United States. And Oxnard happens to fall below. Now, when I think of percentages, I think of course, 1 in 100. And if one year 79 kids pass, but then the next year more kids pass, even if it was just 2, man, I would be so happy. That's 2 lives that have a better chance at surviving in the world. That is something to celebrate when you actually think about it and breaking it down. So maybe we need to celebrate more. Maybe we're giving too bit of rigid expectations. I'm also on the same side as you. We talked about it before, where I think we let people pass with, you know, the participation trophies and things of the like. But I think that not everything is going to be normal or of expectation, and that's just with everything in the world. We can have our own expectations, but it's not really reality. The reality is some education systems are really failing because they don't have the people there, because it's not important to the parents to get the kids to school. There's so many factors in this that makes Oxnard a failing school district. But if we save just a couple more kids, I think that is absolutely something to celebrate.
Well, you know, I understand what you're saying, and I don't agree for this reason. You know, sitting in the district watching the shit show happen, from benchmark scores being lower and lower every single year, watching this go now, and I think that here's a great point that you make, which is the fact that we have mediocre parents pushing mediocre kids at a mediocre school. Well, the expectation lies the highest with the school district, because see, we pay teachers here in the state of California the highest out of any state. They're the highest paid in any state for teachers. Now, we're ranked 36th overall out of 50 states, well, 48 states, lower 48. And that's horrible. Okay, now, not all of it, and I do believe that parents do hold a good portion of the responsibility to make sure that, you know, homework is done, and to make sure that they're doing their schoolwork, and make sure that they side with what the teacher is saying. But, you know, I've seen it personally where teachers are beating kids out of the school. Teachers are off campus before the kids are off campus. So, you know, I see things. I'm not blaming everything on teachers, but when you get paid to do a job, look, I worked as a custodian. If something wasn't clean, I didn't walk away going, shit, look what I did. I didn't do that, but I still should get paid what I'm getting paid for not doing the job that I got hired to do. So do teachers have a tough job? Of course. I have no doubt that teachers have a tough job. But it's the job that you wanted. It's the job that you decided to get into. And do I think that a principal who shouldn't be a principal should be a principal? Absolutely not. But I also don't think that administrators who don't know what the hell they're doing should also be administrators. Just because you have what they call an admin credential doesn't mean that you're qualified to be an administrator in charge of a department or anything like that. Look, leaders are not made. Leaders are born. And that's what a true leader is. And we have, and I like to put it this way, when you have clowns trying to hire a general to lead your group, all those clowns do is hire another clown. And that's what the Oxnard Elementary School District has done. They have a bunch of clowns hiring people, and all they're doing is hiring clowns. That's a problem in the Oxnard Elementary School District, in my view. Now, could it be better? Yes, absolutely. Could the administration be better from the top to the bottom? Absolutely. But this failure is not just this year. It wasn't from 2022. We have been falling in test scores since the 90s. We've been falling in test scores, and it's just gotten worse and worse. And I want to blame the people that we pay to educate our children first. I want to blame those people because, well, that's what they get paid to do. And they get paid good money. All of them get paid good money.
I disagree with that. Absolutely not.
How do you disagree? Explain.
I don't believe that teachers get paid good money.
No,
No, I
you
don't.
don't think the teachers earning the highest salary out of all teachers in the United States?
Oh, I'm not talking about the United States. Well, yeah, you said California has the highest rate of pay. Yeah,
Yes.
no, I don't think so. I mean, I would have to look it up, but
Yeah.
let me see.
And we're also ranked 32nd. So that tells you that why would you have, and I'll take it to sports. Why would I have the number one pick produce nothing and I pay them the highest, and yet they're less than middle of the pack when it comes down to overall performance? That's problematic. I don't blame it all on teachers, because who are the administration? Teachers. They just moved up because they have an admin credential. So I don't understand that. You know, all of it is based on clowns hiring clowns. Now, if we took it as a business, and that's the thing that we need to do, is take it as a business, because I believe that we as taxpayers pay the school district as a business to teach our children. We need to get the best education out of our children. And how we need to do that, I don't believe that Sacramento, I don't believe that a lot of people that are in charge of how the curriculum is done, I don't believe that they hear teachers enough, because I listen to some of the teachers, and I'm not trying to brag, but some of the teachers that were at the school that I was at, they would come in literally with me when I got there in the morning, and they would leave far after me. And they were putting in that work. And I completely admired those people, because that was a selfless thing they were doing. They understood. But they also had really high performing kids. And as a person who was observing these kids, I could almost tell which kid was part of which class, just on the way they would act, just the way they would respond to things. And I was just like, wow, I'm looking at these kids like, this kid's bright. This other kid, you're like, hey, no, don't do that, do this. And then they're looking at you like, I don't know, this is a puzzle, I can't figure it out. And you're like, okay, kid, come on, we got to work through this. Little things like that you notice, especially I worked in the elementary school district, but I also worked in the junior high district for a while, or the junior high schools for a while. And you can see the difference in the kids, obviously, as they grow and they mature and so forth. But the teachers are our first line. Do I believe that some teachers should be paid? And this is how I think. This is just how I think. I do believe that teachers should be paid like coaches. If you're producing a good product, then you get incentives. If you're not producing a good product, you need to fucking move on. And that's just how it is, right? Like, I mean, think about that. Wouldn't that incentivize teachers to continue to work hard and do things like, look, if you're going to get a $20,000, $30,000 bonus because your kids performed at the most optimal level, I think that you would work hard at it. And I think that's what we should pay teachers. I think that teachers should be paid like coaches. You're producing a good product, and these kids are coming out and you're like, man, the test scores are awesome. And, I got problems with the way test scores are done anyways now too. But if our kids understand some things when they move on to the next grade level and they just keep rising, we wouldn't have 70% failure rate. That's
Coaches
crazy.
get to pick their kids, though, don't they?
Not necessarily.
Well, they pick who start. Like, they get a group of kids. They get to pick who starts. They get to pick the plan. They get to pick the ones that they like the most, that will perform the best. Teachers,
100%.
they just get a group of kids that are thrown into the room, and you want them to perform like a coach, but they don't perform like a coach. They can't. It's impossible.
Well, it's not impossible, because here's the thing.
I'm not saying, let me clarify.
Sure.
There are teachers, I've had stellar teachers where I've gone through, I could have, an English class with basically the same kids that I have my math class in. And you could tell there's a difference in the teaching style and who's going to have an effect and who's not going. Like, of course, there are good teachers and there are bad teachers, but it's a little like comparing a teacher to a coach is a little wild.
Well, okay, I'm not comparing a teacher to a coach, because teachers wouldn't even measure up, because teachers are not, they're not based on performance. Like a teacher evaluation. Do you think a teacher evaluation should be based on what the kids learn? Do you think that?
Well, I think it is.
It's not.
They have expectations of what the kids are supposed to learn.
It's
That's what
not.
school testing is for.
It's not. It's based on what the room looks like. It's based on, are the alphabets put up? Are the numbers put up? Are the things that they're pushing for as far as the testing, is that up? Is that they're not based necessarily on what it is that they're teaching and how they're teaching it. They're based on how things are set up, which I didn't understand. I was like, well, wait a minute. You're not basing it like on the kids and, test scores and looking at what they did in the first half of the school to what they looked at the second half of the school. It's not based on these things. And they're like, no, it's based on these other metrics, which don't necessarily have to do with how the teachers are teaching. And this is the thing that teachers had told me, which is, we don't agree with this. We agree that we should be teaching these kids more, but this doesn't do what they think it's doing. Now, when they say they're talking about like Sacramento. They're not thinking that this is the best way to teach these kids, but Sacramento doesn't listen. The upper management isn't listening. And that was the complaint I got a lot from teachers, which is like, I just don't agree with this. That's why I do all the extra, because I know this kid needs help this way, but these things that they want me to teach or how they want me to teach doesn't help that. And I'm like, well, how in the hell do we make that better? And they said, well, I don't know. I'm just a cog in the wheel. And I'm like, fuck, see, we got to get rid of that. We got to get rid of that kind of thinking and teach our kids how to be better. And that's why I look at it like from the perspective of, look, if I'm dumping all this money into education as a taxpayer, I want more for my dollar. Okay. I want more for my dollar. I don't want to hear about 70% of the kids failing in math and they're lower in literacy. How are they going to function? How are they going to function? How are high school kids? I don't know. I don't know if you hang around high school kids or you've been around high school kids lately, but high school kids, when they talk and they try to give you an ideal of their worldview, you know what the hell they're talking about. They just have this like fantasy of, oh, this is the world and how I know it, because that's how I know it. Not that I understand that's what it is, but it's just how I feel about it. And it's like, holy shit, you can't eat on ideals. You can't pay your bills on wishes. We need these kids to come out into the world and be functionable in the world. And I don't think that we're doing that. We obviously, the test scores show that we are just not doing it. How in the hell do we do this when we pay the most for kids in school? What are we paying for? So they can, we get them books, we get them new stuff, new supplies. And yet, what do they do? Hang out with their friends for lunch? Where does my money go? Where does all that money go? I don't understand. We send hundreds of millions and I believe billions into the education with a 70% failure rate. And California is not the only one. There's other states that are even worse. Okay, which I don't know how the hell you can get worse. But we've done that. We've done that. How do we get better as a society? How do we get better if we don't start with our kids first in literacy? Because I talk to adults, and some adults nowadays are just fucking dumb. And it's like, okay, I don't know what to do with a 32-year-old person who doesn't understand, basic things, but okay. I don't pay for you. Essentially, I don't pay for you, but I do probably pay if you're on some sort of shit that you can't, that you're on some sort of a handout that I'm paying for. Okay, I get it. But how do we fix this? As a society, to stop saying that mediocrity is acceptable. How do we fix it?
Oh, I don't know about all that. I'm not as researched on the subject. I hear what you're saying, but not only do I hang out with high school students, but I have a high school student. And she's brilliant, and her friends are pretty smart as well. And she goes to an IB school in Oxnard, and she has college credits right now, and she knows what she wants to do. And a lot of her friends do too. It doesn't scare me if the other ones don't, or if there are some behind. But it does seem like there's something you're really angry about, which is totally fine. It's just I'm not as knowledgeable about what you see in there. It's not been my experience. I do believe that our schools are behind. I will say that loud and clear. I work for a school And the kiddos that at private school and the kiddos that graduate from that school, they are already ahead from the next grade that they're going to like tooth and nail. They really are. And I do believe it has to do with the teachers. But I'm not sure that I just feel as if we're like failing all across the board or anything like that. I think a lot of the times there's a disconnection between the world as it was before and the world that it is now. And trying to understand between the two is something that's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, definitely. And I, that's why I said earlier, I'm sorry, there's like 19 things going through my head.
That's okay.
You know, there's some things that we're privy to. Like I said, when I worked at the district and I sat there and I'm watching this unfold in 4K.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at this kid and I'm just like, man, that kid's going to have a hard time. And then, then the parent comes in and you're like, that's why that kid's having a hard time. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a mean way, but I do mean that in a disrespectful way, because how in the hell are you? Look, just because you can have a kid doesn't mean that you're good at being a parent. And I think that we can all say that we've seen those kinds of things.
But if you're already deep-titty, you're not going to suddenly be smart when it comes to that decisions.
100%. But those are usually the people that push it on the districts. And that's what I don't understand either. Like, as normal, I usually put my foot in my mouth quite often. So I'm very adaptable to apologizing, because I say things that are on my mind and people will look at it and be like,
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing, because how can we ever talk and learn from each other? How can we ever? There's things you've changed my mind on too that I was so strong about. And I was like, you know what? I actually just didn't hear what you were talking about correctly. I didn't understand it correctly. Or actually, maybe I thought absolutely differently, but you just changed my mind. We have to be able to talk about differing opinions. I think it's so important. I'm so happy you do this podcast. I really am.
Well, thank you. I try to get into the uncomfortable conversation without making enemies.
Oh, I know.
But
I know.
I agree with you. And like, we need to have a conversation and understand it, that it's not from a malice standpoint. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to say,
I'm not going to block you later either. So.
No, but we have this thing, and I want to say that Jennifer points out something that really is true, which is the state, the testing is a waste of time for the benefit. It only benefits the state legislators on how they can big up themselves and saying, oh, look at this test score. And it's like, yeah, but what does the test score matter if our kids don't have basic functions like common sense? Like a friend of mine tells me this thing, and I believe it more and more, that common sense isn't so common anymore.
Yeah, I knew you were going there.
And I'm like, no, I refuse. And then I walk out there and I have a conversation and I'm like, shit, he's right.
But can I say that a catchphrase is only a catchphrase because it's been true for far too long? It's not news.
Great point.
So I love the bell. I love the bell. When I get the bell, it makes me so happy. I'm like, ding, we need to put score points in the corner.
Well, I don't know why you would want to do that. I mean, I'm just going to annihilate you that way. So,
you better quit it right now.
No, you make a great point. And you know what? I like that. And I'm going to steal that from you, because you know what? It does hold true that the reason that these things have become, synonymous with whatever that issue is because it's been going on for far too long. And that's a problem. And I think that our education system, we've become so complicit with mediocrity that we now reward mediocrity. And I think that
I actually say I think it's upon the most of us that like, I know you have a lot of common sense, you have a lot of logic. I believe you believe the same thing about me, and that's why we talk and we have good discussions. It is upon us to plan around the people who might not have it. Like, we are failing at the top. We need to be better about it. I don't know what the answer to that is. I really don't. But there just needs to be something better that we can do to take care of everybody, because I don't think people can help it necessarily if they have common sense most of the time, sometimes, but not all the time. And I just think we need to be better as a society, truthfully.
No, you know what?
I think is where you're getting at, though.
100%. And that's the thing that I hold so strongly, because, being a Democrat, I'm a Democrat, and being a Democrat, it's harder and harder to show that we all. I had a conversation last week, as a matter of fact, with Jennifer.
No.
And
That's cool.
Jennifer told me, like, wow, I wasn't expecting this. And there was another young lady, I want to say Dawn was her name. Um, she said, thank you for having these kinds of conversations because they're based in reality and not feelings.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, I have this saying, uh, expectation minus reality equals disappointment unless your expectation is rooted in reality. And I
Ooh, I like that.
I made that up when I was a steward, a union steward, and I use that for the simple reason is because it's true. Everything we do has to be based in reality, not a
Yeah.
fantasy or how I feel, and that's the hard conversation. And I know that this is holding true for the simple reason is that for the voter ID, a little bit off subject, okay, off subject, the voter ID thing is universally accepted by the Democratic Party at 73%. So 73% of registered Democrats are in favor of a voter ID. Now think about this for just a second. When more than half of us agree on something, should that not just be us moving that way? But we're not. Our politicians in the Democratic Party are fighting this tooth and nail. And it's like, well, wait a minute, 73%.
Even though 73% of the people said, the people have spoken. The people have spoken.
And that same
Yeah.
73% is probably the one that wants to have common sense conversations. But the other,
I think that is a fair analogy. Yeah.
because I'm sitting here, I'm all alone. I feel like I'm all alone.
No, you're not though.
And I'm just like, man, I'm a Democrat, but at the same time, I get told by Democrats, you should just become a Republican if you think that way.
Oh, I call myself a Democratic Republican or vice versa, whatever the terminology is. I'm like, I'm a mix of both. I don't know. I'm in between somewhere.
Well, because
Yeah.
you have a common sense approach to things. And I think that
Yeah.
that's part of the problem for other people because we call out, I want to call out bullshit. And it's like, okay. And like you said this earlier, you alluded to this earlier, and I believe this. We have grown adapted to weigh how we're going to kid gloves grown adults and their feelings because they said something that was full of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
do I rip the Band-Aid off and say, look, dummy, that's not how the world works? Or do I sit there and go, Bob, I'm gonna tell you that you probably aren't right on that, but let me see if I can get you to understand this corner of the argument, and then give them small. It's like, let me feed you, baby bird. Let me chew up this food a little bit because obviously you can't digest this because you just don't have any kind of capacity and understand that. And again, Jennifer makes this great point. Civil discord is what we need to do. We need to be not mad at each other, but understand we are failing. And let's recognize where we're failing. We're failing in education. And how do I know that? Because I've been in many, many, many rooms with in a conversation with many people that are part of the educational system.
Oh, I
that
had to look it up. So for those of you who don't know, civil discourse is the respectful, open exchange of ideas aimed at expanding knowledge and understanding. Open exchange, respectful, ideas aimed at expanding knowledge and understanding, rooted in civic responsibility rather than just mere politeness. Rather than just mere politeness, I love that. It requires active listening, separating facts from opinions, and prioritizing problem solving over hostility. Okay, I had to look that up. Thank you, Jennifer.
But that, I mean, and that's a great point to have for the simple reason is, like I said, the ad hominems that people throw at me for simply asking a question of, well,
Yeah.
what's wrong with voter ID? Oh, what are you, one of those, what are you,
Yeah.
this? And I'm like, no, I'm just asking, like,
We were talking about that earlier. It's like if you're curious, and even if your question is, it might be a silly one to somebody who knows more, they get so easily offended because it might be a question that maybe opposes what they believe, but you're just trying to find out information. And unfortunately, that is offensive to most people, which I think we just need to, we need to talk more.
So how do we tell? How do we tell our communities that, when we look at the school districts, see, now this is, and I go back to the school district here for the simple reason is that we're failing, and we're not barely failing. I'm not talking about 49% failure. I'm talking 73% failure. That's crazy.
Did you just read about this today?
No, this has been a topic of conversation that I've had on many discords because of the strikes, all the strikes that are happening where, teachers are like, hey, we're not making enough money, and, why are there budget cuts? And again, this goes down to people being stupid. Okay. And I'm just going to point this out. Look, when there's less kids, that means less revenue, and less revenue means less people, because not everybody can be you can't afford to pay everybody if there's not enough kids in a classroom. And I don't understand how people don't understand that basic concept of math, which is if you have, if you got 15 kids in a classroom and you're supposed to be at, 30, and then there's another teacher who's got 20 kids in their classroom and another teacher who's got 27, at some point it has to collapse because you don't make enough money in the classroom with the kids and the money that's paid for kids to sustain that classroom. So they have to be collapsible because there's not enough kids. Okay, now the Oxnard Elementary School District, now I don't know all the numbers for sure, but I want to say that their population rate was somewhere in, I want to say it was something like 16,000 at its highest. And now I believe they're at 13 or 12. Oh yeah, they've lost all kinds of kids. But then we're talking about like, oh, well, we need reduction. And it's like, yeah, we need reduction, but we have to be smart about the reduction, right? Like, I'm not saying that we need to just cut every teacher, but what I'm saying is we need to cut enough down that they have to be able to teach our kids. And we need support, right? Like, things just ain't going to just appear, but we have to be able to say, okay, teachers, here's what we're going to do. We have enough kids that we're going to have these classrooms that are, basically at capacity, because we still need to be able to pay for the lights. We still need to be able to pay for the gas and the water and all the other shit that comes with having a school. But people are not thinking that. Like down here in Oakland, the teachers were striking and they got this huge raise. And I sat there and I thought, don't those people understand what happened? And they're like, well, what do you mean in this Discord? What do you mean? And I said, look, you basically got a raise so they can reduce the amount of teachers. That's what you did. You got a raise based on a declining enrollment. So what does that mean? In order to pay for the raise, we need to cut salaries. Who does that mean? That means that you're probably going to have 35 kids in a classroom opposed to 30. Why? Because we're going to condense it. We're going to make bigger classrooms because we have a smaller size, but we need to reduce the pay rate of a teacher who makes about $89,000 a year. And we need to reduce that. So how many of those people do we need to get rid of in order to make up for the 3% salary that you just got a raise on at a declining enrollment? And it's like, how are you a teacher and you're so fucking stupid and you don't understand that? But don't get me wrong. The classified employees, such as the custodians and the maintenance, they're fucking idiots too. For the simple reason is they don't understand basic shit too. When you ask for a raise, you're asking for a declining, you're asking for people to be cut. Now for us, classified people, you cut a shitload of classified people to reduce that pay. That's, or to reduce the amount of money that's paid. Because, you don't fill a deficit with nickels and dimes. You fill it with dollars. And who has real dollars? The only people making real dollars are admin and teachers. They're the only people making real dollars, because you got to cut 3 or 2 of middle salary classified employees in order to make up for a teacher salary. only because that's our pay differences. So it's like, man, how about this? Run for stability in the workplace and not necessarily the salary. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand we live in California and I understand that it's expensive, but there are choices to be made here. Now, we need to understand why it's so expensive here. It's not because the school district isn't paying you enough. It's because we're making legislative laws that tax us worse than any other state in the United States. And that's why we're so high. Does some of it have to do with the federal government? Very little of it, but mostly all of our problems here in California with everything being so expensive is our own fault. So why aren't we smart enough? How are you a teacher? You're not smart enough to say, hey, I don't know if I want to vote for another tax or another, and I don't know if you guys in Oxnard have this, will have this year, those bond measures, right? Fucking bond measures, 20-year bond measures that they're going to say, okay, we're going to take an additional money out of your house because you're going to be paying an additional tax on your house, or you're going to be paying an additional tax for something at the local store. When you go get your groceries, we're going to pay an extra 0.25%. But that's why everything's so damn expensive. That's why tri-tip's expensive. That's why I don't barbecue anymore, because it's too damn expensive. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go on a long tangent, but
that was a good one. I do think, though, like, you have a better understanding of like a lot of the inner workings, because not only have you worked in it for so long, but so has Darlene. And I think that you have such an understanding that a lot of people don't maybe think about, in such a way that you do. And I think too, like, right, when the problem's not exactly your problem and it's not something that really bothers you, that you don't pay attention to it. It's unfortunate, but I think you just have such a better understanding. Like, I never thought of a lot of things that you're bringing up right now. So
let's go back to this main thing, which is, should we be making our teachers more accountable for what we're doing? Now, look, we need to back our teachers also. I'm not saying that they should be just left out in the lurch and, not supported by us. That's not what I'm saying. I believe that the teachers need to be supported 100% by us as taxpayers and as parents and grandparents. We need to back our teachers on getting a better education for our kids. And we need to make sure that they are compensated 100%. But us as people need to understand why it's so expensive where we're at. Because, see, that's the main argument I heard on all these discords was teachers don't get paid enough. No, you get paid enough. But we live in a state that self-sabotages itself with taxes and so forth. So we need to fix those things. And that's how we fix that, is by the vote. That's how we fix those things. But it has nothing
to do. Teacher being good or bad is like solely based on their salary, of whether they get paid enough. I think a good teacher is going to be a good teacher regardless of what they make. Why it's so expensive in California is just like a whole nother podcast in and of itself. But any good teacher is going to be a good teacher, period.
I agree with you, but there's a thing that happens, and again, I'm witness to this. When you have a shitty teacher getting the same money as a good teacher, it doesn't want to make that good teacher continue to be a good teacher. Over time, those teachers get beat down, because why am I going to, what's the incentive of me working as hard as I'm working when that teacher beats the kids out of the school? What? And we all, I mean, I'm sure at some point in your scholastic career, or even your career or as a parent, has heard of and or know of a teacher who just seems to be coming in for the paycheck. Now, I've seen it. Don't get me wrong. It happens in every work environment, every workplace. And I just want to say something off topic real quick, because I have not been kicked off yet. So if I do, hang in there. Shit.
Wait, I think by last podcast, we had already been kicked off like 3 or 4 times.
Right? So I'm like, I don't know. Am I bobbing and weaving right? Is that happening? I don't even know.
Amazing.
Right?
Love that. Congrats.
So
did you up your subscription?
Yeah. If upgrading it was the trick, I would have done that, but it apparently not. I don't know. But so do we tell, at what point do we not put the blame at the foot of teachers and the administration and the district when we do mediocre shit, like what Oxnard Elementary did with posting that thing about, oh yeah, we got this and we're good. Check it out. Look how great we are. We jumped 8 points to now we're at 73% failure rate instead of 76. What the hell? That doesn't make no sense.
I think it's really hard to put the blame at solely anyone's feet when clearly there's like so many different factors that go into just that one thing. I think accountability is, of course, a part of every job. If you're not doing it within your district, you surely need to. But just as I'm accountable at my job, I've got goals and metrics that I have to meet. I would imagine a teacher should be held to the same standards that make sense for them and for their class, even if it's tailoring it to the class. If you've got a class that is all across the gambit, which I've seen before, or you got a class that is supposed to be just the smart kids or
Yep.
just the special kids, then your goals should be tailored specifically to that. And what is the goal?
Yeah.
And what do we expect from this class? If we're not doing that, we're already doing something wrong. And if common sense is not that common, I'd be very concerned.
Definitely. And and I think that more people, and I'll include you in this group. Now you can decline or accept, but I think that more people are starting to realize and wake up that we're doing weird shit with simple things. Like we're clapping and giving flowers for shit you're supposed to do.
I feel like that's been a new discovery for me, new-ish. I think I kind of knew it before, but like I didn't know how to put the words to it. Now, my mouth is too big. I'm like, wait, what is happening? What is going on? Talk to me about this or that. But yeah, we do weird stuff, weird stuff.
So let me show you this video. I got to show you this video because I saw this the other day and I was like, all right, let me look at this video. Check this out.
Okay.
I saw a post that shared that video, and there was this woman saying that she is very happy that she's going to a graduation that is affluent and mostly white, so she's not going to see this mess. And I jumped in and I was like, you don't always have to be mad at Black people for celebrating and doing their thing. Like, this isn't harming anyone. And then I sat there and I thought about it for a little bit. This is unacceptable, largely because a lot of these Black kids are graduating without the ability to read. I then was like, you know what? Let me look up this school. Madison Preparatory Academy is one of the top schools in that area when it comes to graduation rates of 95%. However, while they have a 95% graduation rate, 65% of them cannot read.
Stop.
They have only a 35% literacy proficiency score in that school, yet 95% of them are graduating. So here they are celebrating and gyrating and twerking and throwing it back like it's a twerk fest, and yet you can't read.
Mm.
Wow.
And I checked it out. All right. I looked it up because not that I didn't believe that guy. And yeah,
No, you have to fact check. Absolutely.
Madison Preparatory Academy, what he said is factual. It has a 95% graduation rate, but they according to the literacy rates, they cannot read. And we've done this weird thing and saying that, hey, they have a math proficiency. They were at 73% failure rate. Their science test scores proficiency was at an 86% failure rate.
Is that because they get money for the amount of graduates they have?
That part wasn't studied, nor did I find anything about it that was.
But it's a prep school, it's a private school, so they're probably getting paid money from parents.
Yes, but not all academies. They could be what they call what is that? Not a satellite school. It's called it's a school that can get public funding also, and these are it's difficult to sit there and say, well, damn, how do we do that? How do we have a 95% graduation rate, and yet these kids can't read, but yet they went through the whole process. It's like you went all 4 years. What the hell? Oh yeah, thank you guys, Sharon, and I appreciate it. Yes, charter schools. I should have remembered. And they get public funding, and there's some that are privately funded, but the majority of charter schools are publicly funded. But yet, how do we get there? How do we get to this kind of thing? That's the scary part of what I was talking about, as far as they go out into the world and what, and then think about it. They graduated high school and they jump into They jump into colleges because they have a high school diploma. So they jump into a college and get something that they can't handle. Yeah. And they get debt, because the majority of people may not have may not be up there high enough to say, okay, I'm going to get a full scholarship. So they got to get in there and they jump into debt. So it's like, why are you jumping head first into this
There's no
debt?
way they're going to make it through that process. They've not been taught. Like, it's such a failure to the child.
Right. I mean, and I think us as a society, we
It's
have
sad.
to stop this, right? Like, we have to stop this. Do you see all those kids happy, right? Look at, they graduated. So what the hell what are we celebrating? You can't read.
But truthfully, right? Like, let's go back to setting expectations, Big John, because where did we just put them? Like, you graduated, and mind you, I've never seen this clip. I've not fact checked. I'm just saying, if all of this is true and all these stats are true, and we're all celebrating here, we put on this big promotion. We're telling them the bar is this. Like, you could do this bare minimum work and still get the diploma, still get the recognition, still get the celebrations. What we're before they've even gotten into the job force, we've already set expectations that you could do less than bare minimum and still get the gold. That is wild. That is wild.
100%. 100%. And you know what? It is definitely embarrassing. And that's what it is.
I like
It
that.
is. It's so embarrassing.
It is.
Because how do I look at a school district? How do I look at people doing this? Like, we used to have this promotional thing, and there was a big old thing where they would walk down the hallways, okay? Because that was the last time these kids are walking down the hallways. And don't get me wrong, it's a nice production. But these are fifth graders that are going to sixth grade.
That's so weird to me. I know.
And I'm like,
They
what
did it for my son too.
and I'm like, what the I used to tell little John, like, I mean, I remember a friend of mine asking me, hey, are you throwing a party for, your son because he's graduating high school? No. Why? He says, oh, well, I'm throwing a party for my daughter. I mean, I'm throwing a big old
I
thing.
did get that.
And well, I'm just looking at it like, why? And he's all like, what do you mean why? And I said, well, you're supposed to graduate high school. What the fuck? That's some low expectation. I mean, it's like, look.
Sometimes you're a hard ass. You know that, right?
Well, okay. Am I really a hard ass, or is this what we're supposed to do? Like, I don't sit there and go, hey, check it out. You went today and you put gas in your car, and oh my God, I'm so proud of you.
You think 12 years of school and going to school for the formative years of your life, like having responsibility at such a young age, I think it's a good thing, don't get me wrong, but 12 years of school is not something to celebrate. Like, I'm just not saying like you pumped gas in your car, which was really hard for me to learn when I started. But 12 years of school, I think is pretty cool. It's pretty
Well,
cool.
you know what? I don't disagree with the fact that you went to 12 years of school and you graduated. But I don't know. I take that as the same as like, hey, you know what? In order to get out of kindergarten, you got to know your colors and you got to know a couple things, right? Just like when you get out of high school, you kind of got to know a couple of things. Why? Because, well, your next step may not be college. You are literally going out into the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where I see that you should be celebrated is when you've achieved something that is difficult. Now, going to school for 12 years and graduating high school is not supposed to be considered so difficult that it's the pinnacle of your life, because you just got kicked out into life. So how are you?
Maybe it should be, because what kind of pains me the most is that those formative years, like going through middle school and most especially into high school, is it does not teach you about how to figure out who you are and what you want to be. It doesn't really teach you about life. It teaches me mathematics and like, it's great, all the academics, but it removes entirely the life factor of like, man, had I known that really singing was in my blood, singing was what I want to do with my life, I would not have started only at 36 years old. I would have started when I was 14. I would have been out there already, but academics were shoved into my face. Jesus was shoved into my face. And it's just, it doesn't teach you about real life.
Right. No. And I agree that we have moved away from a lot of things. Like, and I know I'm pushing myself, dating myself.
It's okay.
Back when I was in school in junior high, we had sewing class. We had cooking class. We had wood class and metal. And that was in junior high. And of course, when I got to high school, we had, of course, mechanics, and we still had all the other same ones. And as a matter of fact, I took cooking class in school because I thought it was going to be easy, and it turned out to be kind of hard. And so I got a B. So that was tough. That was tough on me. But, this is part of the problem that I think in society that we're having, is because we're taking mediocrity and we're celebrating mediocrity like if it is something special. And we need to, I'm all for applauding somebody for doing good at something basic and saying, hey, good job. That way to go. Now here's the next step. But we don't celebrate the on-ramp. Okay. We celebrate driving on the freeway. Because if you can do that without fucking up or screwing somebody else up, then you've achieved something on the freeway, right? Onboarding is not something we celebrate. And that's why I don't know if that's tough, or is that just adding common sense and logic to who we are as people in the plight in which we're running in life. I don't know. Simple shit should not be applauded for the simple reason is it's simple. Something that's simple, hey, you tied your shoes. All right.
Celebrate that for kids.
Kids.
You have to understand people's capacity too. People's capacity is not the same as your capacity.
But that's our
fault. You have a large capacity.
But that's
so if somebody needs celebrating of tying their shoes, like we got to celebrate. And also too, like we could celebrate you getting onboarded the first round, the second round, you better got it down, it's also like, I don't think that there's one set way. There's moving targets constantly. We all have to be adjustable 1000%. But I do believe, I don't disagree with you where I think we celebrate mediocrity too much. I do not disagree with you. But also there's like that passionate, sensitive person in me that's just like, yeah, but also I know a lot of people that I love with my whole heart, but I would be nervous driving in a car with them, I won't be, I wouldn't let them take my math test for me. I wouldn't put them on my podcast, there's people, I love them with my whole heart. I think they're wonderful, but I have to meet them where they are. And I think intelligent people have to know this first and foremost. And if you're that intelligent, then you need to think about it, because there are people who just cannot keep up. And I don't say that in an arrogant way. It's in the most loving and understanding way for me, because I need to be smart enough to understand where you are so that you and I can deal on the same level. And I think that's the same thing with schools. The only way that we can meet them or make them better is to meet them where they are right now. We got to celebrate that 8%, but can we get 9% next year? How about 10% the year after? And teach them how to grow. Like, it's our job, right? To pull them up, send the elevator back down,
Right. No, I'm not as compassionate about people doing shit that they're supposed to be doing. And I just look at it plainly, because like, look, you're supposed to be able to be a functioning adult, and we don't have that. You're supposed to be a child who is not on the descent, but on the ascent of being better. Every year you're supposed to be better. And how in the hell are we not being better? And I think, not that I think, I know the problem is that because we keep big upping people for bullshit mediocrity, and we keep clapping for that. And that's not how we're supposed to be able to do that. And Sharon points this out. And Sharon, thank you. I appreciate that. Please, everybody hit the like in there just to let the algorithm know that we're doing good, okay? A barbecue is fine. That's what we gave my kid. I told my kid, look, where do you want to go eat? My friend was like, hey, man, you're not throwing a big party? No. Why? Oh, they graduated. And I'm like, you're supposed to graduate, you low expectation motherfucker. Why your kid graduated high school? That's not an achievement. And then some people try to tell me this. Well, for some people it is. And I said, okay, for some people it may be, but here's the thing. If you make something special, then that means that it's hit some sort of plateau. When you're talking about basic life, right? Basic life skills is that you're supposed to graduate, kinder. You're supposed to move on from 6th grade to junior high. You're supposed to move on from junior high to high school. And you're supposed to move on from high school into life and or higher education. Now that higher education is said that way. Why? Because it's higher. And don't go to, I mean, I remember somebody saying, hey, you know what? My kid's going to junior college. I said, okay. And they're like, yeah, you know, and I'm so proud of him. I said, you know, and I said, okay. Well, you realize that's the 13th and 14th grade, right? And he's all, what do you mean? And I said, junior college is junior high school before high school. You know, get the best education you can at whatever it is that you think is going to make the most money, and then move forward. And I said, that's what you have to think about. Junior college is like, hey, this is the on-ramp to that higher education. Not this is the pinnacle. I said, you have to look at it that way. I said, because your expectations you're setting expectations too low. Shouldn't we be setting expectations higher? And I understand what you're saying, and I see it in your brain already. I see you. You're thinking,
It's
well,
coming
maybe,
for you when you're done talking.
maybe this is the best that I'm going to get out of this kid. Then I don't know. I think that our expectations are too low.
Okay. I don't know exactly where my brain is going with this, but maybe this is why I'm so sensitive to it. I would imagine that I'm not meeting your expectations when I tell you that I didn't know how to boil water until I was 19 years old. I didn't know how to make a fried egg until I was about 26, 27. And I didn't learn scrambled eggs until like 28. I didn't start making full meals until I was about 30, 34. And even then it was like chicken and rice, like very basic. Learning enchiladas, very, very basic stuff I started to learn. And that was because I was super, super neglected as a child. Like I didn't learn things, but I also didn't know what I didn't know. Like I didn't know that I needed to know how to boil water. I didn't know how often I would use it as an adult. I didn't know that cooking at home was better. I actually didn't know anything about nutrition. It was Taco Bell every day of our lives. So I didn't even really know how to fully take care of myself. So we're talking about expectations. You're talking about your expectations. Those expectations were never taught to me. Neither was being academically inclined. My parents didn't really care about that. They only just cared that they weren't getting calls from the school. So I only knew that I had to be good at school because I wanted to play sports. And because I wanted to be in band. So that's where my academics came from. I couldn't do that unless I did this. So I know the rules, like there are rules. But when we talk about expectations, you're talking about yours. And so I beg you to like think about like maybe there, like people have obviously different ones. And I know that you know that, but talking about boiling water or learning how to boil water at 19, the only reason I learned that was because somebody asked me to do it. I tried it and I went over and the water had evaporated. I was like, where did the water go? I was so confused utterly, but I didn't want to tell them I didn't know how to do it. And it was quite conflicting for me. Then I got scared to ask questions because people laughed at me.
Great point.
So then I was scared to tell people I don't know how to boil an egg. I don't know how to make an egg. I don't know how to make breakfast. I don't know how to make bacon. I don't know. Like, it's almost like, sorry, this is where I say I don't know where my brain is going with this, but it's just, I think about Oxnard and that's where I was raised. And quite frankly, like I was missed in a lot of things. And I think a lot of other people were too.
Yeah. You know what? And I can definitely, there are things that probably should have been afforded to you. Now, not necessarily only just your parents, but we should have, if there was school that had, you know, home ec and had sewing and had other things. See, you could have taken some of those classes just to figure some stuff out. And that's what I think that we need to bring back to schools because these are basic education things that we should have skill sets for. And we're missing that in the educational system to the point we're pushing kids out of the door into life without any real world skills.
And wondering why we're flailing.
100%. I want to show you this next video that I
okay.
I want to get I want you just to listen because I grit my teeth when I listen to this, but I want you to check this video out, okay? Oops, sorry.
What the that mean? Let
me start that over.
What do you know?
That you're a musician.
What the that mean? Make magic or something? What is musician?
I think you're confusing that.
Yeah, I'm not no musician. I make music. I make music. And that's not all I do. I make music. I act. I'm a TV star too.
I think you're confusing.
I'm not confusing nothing because you don't know. You thought that all I was a magician or whatever the you said.
See, that's what I think you think I said. No, I said musician, not magician.
I don't think, baby. I don't think. What is that? That's ghetto. I don't think. I know.
I didn't say magician, Suki. I said musician. And I think you are a musician.
No, baby. I do music.
So you just really just really quick for the record, could you say you don't think you're a musician?
I'm not none of that.
But then after that, you just said, I do music.
Yeah, I do music.
So in other words, you're a musician.
No, I'm not.
See what I mean, you guys?
That
So I've already seen this one far too many times. It's mortifying. It's mortifying. It's mortifying.
but you know what I'm bothered about it the most is not necessarily so much that she is confident about what she's saying because she thinks this. It's the ignorance in it and how confident she's in the ignorance of it and not even listening to what she is saying. It's like she can't process that. And that's our fault as people to not tell other people, our friends, because I look at it this way. If I'm your friend, and I hope I'm your friend, but if I'm your friend and you say something that's just fucking dumb, I'm going to look at you and go, yeah, that's
I would certainly hope so.
And the same for in reverse. Like if I say something that's completely asinine and you're looking at me like, what the hell?
I will. Yeah.
You know, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And then you say, well, what do you think that is? And then I tell you and you're like, no, that's not it, John. It means this. And I'm just like, oh, I didn't know that. But see, if I sit there and go, no, Michelle, no, you're wrong. And you're like, no, read. I don't read because that's ghetto. And I'm just like, what the hell? What are we doing? Her friends don't love her for her to be that ignorantly confident in what she's saying.
Well, you have to be interested in who she is surrounded by. And I don't think she became that way, solely on her own. So you are the people who you are surrounded by. And so
100%. Now, I want to, and this is the part that I go back to the educational system and say,
bread, but I'm not a baker.
Really?
I sing, but I'm not a singer.
Well, Ben, I believe you're a master baker. If I'm not, mistaken, you're a master baker. So I don't know. I'm not sure what that means, Ben, but don't be stirring some shit with me. As a matter of fact, hit the like, bro. Hit the like, man. There's some people in here. We got to hit the like, brother.
Hit the like, y'all.
So let me bring this next video up because this is something that I saw this and I was like, how in the hell is this really happening? Because we allow these kids to go through the system and it's not just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of just negligence toward these kids. This is negligent to me as far as I'm concerned. Let's check this video out.
Tonight, an alarming discovery out of a Baltimore City high school where hundreds of students are failing.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, we found a student who's passed 3 classes in 4 years and is ranked near the top half of his class.
We're not letting none of this get the best of us. All right? Be strong, son. We got this.
He's stressed, and I am too. Like, I told him I probably will start crying. Like, my son is, I don't know what to do for him.
This coming June is when Tiffany France thought her son would receive his diploma.
And I'm just trying to fight. He like, Mom, what was all this for? What did I do this for? Like, don't he get a chance? Do he get a chance?
But after 4 years of high school, this mom just learned her 17-year-old has to start over. He's been moved back to 9th grade.
Why would he do 3 more years in school? He didn't fail. The school failed him. The school failed at their job. They failed. That's the problem here. They failed. He didn't deserve that.
Yeah. I do think that the district has failed, but again, all the accountability is not just on the school. It's on the kids too. Because how the hell?
The kids? What about the mama? I'm sorry, but I check my son's homework. I check his grades. I check what he does.
100%.
I look at his work every once and again. I don't have to do it every night. But you're telling me between 9th and 12th grade, you never look back and said, let me see that book report. Let me see what you did. Let me go to open house. Let me see your artwork. Let me see. You're telling me you never said? And I mean, you could see that? Are you kidding me? To me, that's also on the parents. And if my kid was in a school where they're not checking your stuff, best believe we'd be moved. There's responsibilities on the parents too. That makes me so mad. I'm sorry.
No, and I agree. I mean, that's why I said it's not solely on the district.
It's so many. And
Right.
what a failure to the child. Of course, they're going to want to say, screw it to homework, screw it to classwork. Oh, I can just sit here. Oh, I can skip. If that was allowed the whole time, and I've, again, never seen these videos, disclaimer. I'm just saying, assuming all is true. If they were allowed really like to do all of that, that is on every single adult around them. That child has been failed. And now they're going to lose another 3 years of their life where they could have been out doing real work.
Right. I totally agree with that. I mean, that's so problematic within the school district. But not only is it in the school district, but it's also the parents. I mean, in 4 years, I didn't want to let it go all the way on because it's a rather long interview. But this child, I believe it said in his junior year, that he missed over 200 and some days of absences. And
I knew it. Didn't I say skip class? I
and
knew it. I knew it.
and the mom was saying things like, I never received anything from the school that said that he was tardy or late or absent or
That's a big problem.
didn't show up. And there was a teacher who came on in that interview and said, hey, you know what? Yeah, I take full responsibility. I was not directly one of his teachers, but I am a teacher at that school. And if we're doing things to kids, that lands on us. And I'm like, you know what? It's nice to see a teacher take responsibility for the failure of a district. But where is the parent? Where is the parent in this? How do you know 4 years? And in 4 years, you never went to an open house? You never went to go talk to a teacher parent conference? You never, what? Right? And I sit there, but I don't want to just blame kids coming out of high school, because I'm going to show you this next video. And when I saw this video, I was like, all right, this isn't a not good one, but we got to go with it. Let's see, bring that thing up. What's it at? All right, I'm going to play.
Then if I
just for context, these students, they have to read this thing. They're asking him to read off of this this little card. Okay.
Carrie tried to ambush the extortion scheme.
What does that mean?
I don't even know. I can't say that. I tried to ambush the extortion scheme.
What does that mean?
I don't know. The university.
So it's not
The beneficiary tried to embellish the extortion scheme. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I graduated the Oxnard Elementary School District, so I can't read that well. So I'm going to just say it. I'm a product of the Oxnard Elementary School District.
Can I say they all look like they were stoned without getting in trouble?
But you know how even when you're stoned, you can sound out a word, right? So like I said, look, and I was having a conversation with somebody else, and I was saying, hey, well, maybe they don't know the word because they haven't used, or they don't use the word. Maybe that's what it could be. And then this individual comes back and says, no, you can sound out a word. And these are kids in college. So it's like, I'm like, they should have gone to USC instead of UCLA. Maybe they get a little better. I don't know. But I'm just, fight on. And I'm sorry. I'm all the way USC if you see my USC caps in the back. But this is what's problematic with the school district, because we promote. Now think about if those kids are going to have trouble with that, and they're at a school, a prestigious school like UCLA, which it cost them. I mean, I don't even know what the cost it is to go to UCLA, but I want to say it's probably about $70,000-$90,000 a year to go to that school. So you're going to be saddled with something that you might not complete. Now that happens a lot. A lot of people drop out of school after maybe their second or third year. And if that happens, now you're saddled with 2 to 3 years worth of this debt that's just suffocating you. And that's what I understood, as far as like some teachers would always talk about that, like the student loans just last forever. And you can't get away from them because you can't file bankruptcy against them. You can't do that. That's like the IRS. You're never going to get rid of them. But this is where we're failing. So, you take a kid who's unprepared into the world and you push them out there with this false narrative and these fake, claps about, oh my God, you graduated, but yet you can't read something simple. Mm-hmm. This is why we're failing. And we need to say, as a society, we need to say, stop. Look,
you think they can't solve middle school problems, high school problems, even college problems, they're not going to be able to solve life problems.
This is what I think. And I know that this sounds, if I were to build a school, if I was going to start a district in an educational system,
straight out university,
I would be right at kinder. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay teachers the salary that they earn in putting out good kids. Now we're going to give them everything we can to be successful. All the tools, all the metrics, everything, every little thing that we need to build that kid. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have high achieving kids and low achieving kids not in the same classroom. We're going to separate those kids. And what we're going to do is, because see, if little Johnny needs more work, then we need to give little Johnny that work, right? Now, if little, Tiffany is stronger in school, then they don't need as much work, but we just need to continue to fuel them and have them rise. And better to have D students work with other D students and have C students work with other C students, and then go forward for this reason. When you're a D student and you're competing with an A student, it's like being in a track meet and you just know you're never going to win that race. But if you're in a class with other kids that you're leveled with, you start having that competitiveness, which is natural within us, to be a little bit better, because that kid next to you scored 2 points more than you instead of 60 points more than you. So now you get this thing where you're like, okay, I can do this, and I'm in there and I'm doing it. But that's what we need to do. Now, if I were to build a school, that's how I would build a school, to better kids and to give kids better opportunities to achieve goals. Because look, much like the sports metrics, and I'm going to take it back to sports. If you're not going to have a 36-inch vertical, no matter how hard you work, because genetically you cannot have a 36-inch vertical, then shouldn't we not be honest about that and say, okay, well, then let's just work on all the other attributes. You're not going to be a Division I scholarship athlete, but you might get into a Division III. You might get into some small school in the middle of nowhere, but you're going to get a good education about it. I'm not saying we should crash dreams, but we should be realistic about dreams. If little Johnny's not going to be, if little Johnny is not going to be a doctor, then we need to be honest with that and say, okay, well, then let's make little Johnny the best person that he can be, whatever that is, the best electrician, the best Home Depot employee, wherever this kid is going to land. We need to make sure that he has as many tools as he needs to achieve greatness in whatever he decides to be in. Because like I said, if you're not fit to be a doctor because you don't have the mental capacity or bandwidth to be a doctor, then shouldn't we be a little bit more like, hey, this is where you need to land your plane, and not necessarily, I mean, shoot for the moon. I get it. But there's a reality involved. And I think that we need to look at that from academics the way we do in athletics, which is, let's just be real. You could want to be an NFL player, but the chances of you being an NFL player are not real. But shoot for it. But just understand that, hey, let's have a secondary outlet, which is education, and get the best education you can, and whatever your brain capacity allows you. Not all of us are smart. Okay. I am not an intelligent person. I know a little bit about a lot of little things, but the thing that makes me sound like I'm intelligent is that I only talk about what I know. Because if you ask me something that I don't know, I'm going to tell you, I don't know. And it doesn't make me dumb. It just makes me not talk about, it doesn't make me look dumb to talk about shit that I don't know. So if we have kids in a competitive way compete with one another, I think that we'll have better outcomes, because then we're honest about that kid's education instead of big upping, clapping for the kid to have graduation and he can't read. What the hell? We need to have little Johnny or, Maria in a classroom that they can compete in, and not just be left in the dust because they're in there with A students. I don't know about you, but I've been in classrooms before where I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, this is not, I don't even know what the hell we're talking. And I couldn't get it. And it wasn't necessarily just the teacher, it was that I couldn't get it. So, I couldn't compete against those kids. But you put me in something else that I could work up to where they're at because now you started me at a different level. I was more successful that way. What do you think about putting kids in a comparable class and not putting them all in together at once, where you have the stars on one side and the mediocre on the other, and the non-competing ones in the
But I think you see in school, we have special ed classes. We have, I don't know.
What's
regular
special ed? Hey, I
classes,
wasn't
like a better
special ed.
No, I'm just giving examples. And then we have honors classes or advanced classes or whatever. We kind of already see, like, I think the attempt is there to start. Like, I think that's everybody's idea, is like, yeah, people are different. And then, you start at the School of John with 20 kids, and John is able to say, okay, this kid goes here, this kid goes here, this kid goes here, right? And then that school goes from 20 kids to 30 kids because it's working really well, right? And so then we got 30 kids now. And so John's still adjudicating and like, yes, kids here, kids here, kids here. Oh, that kid is now, instead of a D, he's an A, so I got to re-adjudicate that kid. Okay, now we're going to 40 kids. Okay, well, John needs an assistant. John hires 2 assistants, right? Now John hires 2 assistants to also take care of the kids. But one of John's assistants has a parent who he wants to get into an A class instead of a D class. Like, as soon as you start to involve humans, everything goes awry. Everything goes awry. So there's no way in all get out that we can maintain this level of being able to always have kids in the right class. It's a very big problem. And I think, yes, maybe there's a better way to think around that, but I think the way that you're thinking about it is the way we already tried to. And it's a whole hot mess because people have their friends, people have their feelings, people like this kid or people like this or that, and it just doesn't work. It's the reason the system is falling apart as it is, in my personal opinion. So there needs to be a whole different way. I like the way you're thinking about it because I think people who like chess need to stay in a class of kids who like chess. You're going to get better at chess. But, someday I might wake up and be like, I don't want to do chess anymore. So like that changes and people evolve every single day, most especially kids. And so it's such a moving target to shoot at. I don't know what the answer is, but it just is so convoluted right now.
Yeah, I see that point. And the reason that I say, and I'm curious to know, did we do that at one point? Did we tell parents like, hey, look, we didn't tell them this way, but it's just the way I talk. Look, little Johnny's fucking stupid and he needs to start off in these other classes because, he can't compete in the college prep. And no matter how much you bitch, piss, moan, and cry, little Johnny should not be in the college prep class because, well, he can't handle it because, he's fucking stupid and he needs help. And,
We can't say that.
No, I'm not saying they should say that, but shouldn't we as an academic and as an academic institution, should we not be honest about how we relay the information to parents and say, look,
1,000%.
This kid does not have the brain capacity to be in these classes.
But then, John, you start to factor in money and people graduating for test scores and getting money for the pass rate and things of the like. And now people are passing. Like, there's so many different factors into this. There's not going to be one single resolution. It's got to be a complete overhaul of the whole system.
Right.
And I don't know if anybody's willing to take that on, quite frankly.
But that's why we have these charter schools, and some of these charter schools are atrocious, but some of these charter schools are so successful in telling parents, shut the fuck up. If you're going to come here and complain about how little Johnny got a failing grade because this little shit didn't do his homework, then you know what? You can take your kid and get the fuck out of here because we don't want your kid. And we can't do that in the public school system. And, we should be able to do that in the public school system because, look, that little shit is interrupting the entire class. So that means my kid, who's kind of starting to get it and is struggling, is watching the teacher have to deal with that kid because he's a discipline problem. Like, I remember teachers were given, what are those things in soccer that cover your shin, like shin pads? They were given soccer shin pads because the kid would become so violent, they would kick the teacher in the shins.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So they gave him shin pads instead of saying, nah, afuera, you're out of here. But it's like, oh, well, we can't do that. Why not? Well, because then the parent will sue us. For what? Their kid being a little shit? Yeah. And I'm like, damn, they really, I
believe that every child deserves the right to an education.
Of course.
Parents are most certainly not always the most qualified people, but I do think that there needs to be a better way for us to put them in the most appropriate and qualified
Right.
place. But that's just, yeah, that's where, you know, amongst other things, I think where we
Definitely.
get lost because it's too many kids, it's too many people.
But how this mushrooms out is
Ripple effects for sure too. The
we
ripple
have-
effects are bananas.
we have adults that can't comprehend basic shit. And that's why
Absolutely.
in the state of California, and I say this with all due disrespect, this is why we can't pass measures that are more for us. We keep passing measures that are against us. We keep allowing our politicians to tax us. We keep passing things or allowing those politicians to pass things that are nonsensical when you think about it. Like the just recently there was a bill passed, or actually failed. I'm sorry, failed. And what it was to acknowledge Title IX and not allowing, and I know this is a hot topic for some people, but not allowing young men to participate in women's sports, but to compete in the sports that their gender identifies, and not identifies, that they were assigned at birth. And that's a hot topic here currently in the state of California. And I'm like, look, you know, I understand maybe this kid is going through an event in his life. And, you know, this kid wants to be, hey, you know, look, okay. I don't think that because of that situation, it's a hot topic, but yet there was a bill that was put by the Republican Party out there that said we need to adhere to this ruling that we need to separate that. Now it was voted down by the Democrats, 100%. It was voted down, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't agree with that, but okay, you know. We have to make our politicians accountable, but we don't even know. We're not smart enough. Some of our people are just not, a good portion of our people are not smart enough to understand that that's not right. And the other thing was, there was a bill, and this is my Democratic Party. There was a bill put forward by the Republicans again that made it more of a severe crime to for pedophiles. I'm sorry, pedophile. I can't say that word. Pedophile. That these people who are registered as such, that if they commit a crime of that it becomes even more severe than what it currently is. Now, I'm like, got my vote, and it was voted down unanimously by the Democratic Party. And I'm like, how in the hell is that good for kids?
Wait, say it again.
There was a bill, a measure put out saying that it was going to be more of a severe crime for adults that are trying to do things against kids. The SA.
Voted it down.
And Democrats voted it down unanimously here in the state of California.
Why?
Because
there's just a stipulation that make them vote it down.
Well, here's the problem with our party, in the things that I found for this, did not give a explanation. They just said it was not fair to up the penalty for people who engage in something that is considered, because it goes along another bill by funny enough, I want to say his name is Scott Wiener. He's running for Senate, I believe, and he proposed the bill that passed that makes it a little bit less of a crime, or notably less of a crime, that if a 16-year-old engages with a 24-year-old, that the judge has a right not to have that down as a SA crime, and that person should not, or could not, or maybe would not have to register as a offender. And I'm like, and it passed unanimously. And I was like, what in the deuce? But these are the things we're doing. And when you talk to people about that, they don't understand it. And it's like, but I think that because of our education system not being hyper focused on creating more educated people, because of that is why we have so many of these laws that are passing unchallenged, because our people aren't smart enough to understand that, hey, what did that guy say? Do I agree with this? Because think about it, 73% of Democrats are for voter ID, but yet we're fighting it tooth and nails. And it doesn't make any sense that the majority of us feel this way, but yet our politicians are fighting against it. And then we have all these rules that we're doing that I'm willing to bet you, if you look at Democrats, we don't agree with this. In whole, we don't agree with it. Tell me what it is. Don't just pass a law because none of us are questioning. And we're not questioning because I believe there's an education thing. And I want to bring one last video into this. And when I talk about education, here is the lack of education, and I'm calling it a lack of education because maybe this person doesn't fully understand what the hell they're engaging in as far as this conversation. Let me bring this up. Tell me what you think. I think you'll be hot. I think there's a hot topic right here.
Uh-oh.
Let me grab it up. Here we go.
I'm going around today and trying to gain support for the implementation of Sharia law here in the United States. If you want to see some of the terms and conditions before you sign, one would be supporting that a woman should be covered from their bodies to their hair in public at all times, supporting that a woman should have a male guardian controlling all of her major decisions, agreeing that same-sex marriage is prohibited and punishable by prison, whipping, or death. Are these something that you can resonate with? Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Support that marriage is permitted once a girl reaches puberty, allowing child marriage.
You know, I'm not married yet, but I'm waiting until I get married to have my kids.
That's not real. No way.
It's better that way too.
I definitely think, the younger a girl is married, it's best for her to be under a supervision of a man who can help make the right decisions for her.
That's my signature.
Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
That cannot be true.
This kind of thing happens. Like, and I don't know if you've been around like those people that hang outside of the grocery store and they want your signature because they want to put something on the ballot. And then you sit there and you question them and you say, well, what is this? Oh, this is something that maybe you disagree with. And they're like, well, why don't you just sign your name and let the voters vote? And it's like, well, why would I put that on the ballot for voters to vote if I already disagree with it? Right? Like, why would I give people the chance to vote for something because you have to have X amount of signatures in order for this thing to be on the ballot. And there's not enough people that are voting, or have the wherewithal of what they're voting. Because as I refer back to when I gave you that comment earlier about the 70-some-year-old woman who didn't know that she could vote Republican because she was registered as a Democrat. Think about this. People don't even know. And you have this thing where
I don't think that was the same thing. That
No.
was like, I don't even know what that was. Like, she wasn't even listening to the questions. That is wild.
And you
Just
sit there
like, yeah. How can I get you out of my face?
But that's the danger of not having the wherewithal and being educated enough. Because think about it. If I go to enough
To
people,
know when to say stop. Yeah.
not too long ago, I did this video about kids protesting. I'm not talking about what they're protesting about. They were protesting ICE, but I wasn't talking about what they were protesting. I was questioning on whether or not they understand what the hell they're protesting. And my contention was, if the literacy rates are so low in our schools, it's inconceivable that they even know what the fuck they're talking about. Those kids don't know shit.
1000%. And this discussion happened within my household. There was a protest that was happening at my son's school, and my son was just curious and said, hey, Mom, would you let me protest? And I said, well, what are you protesting for? Tell me that first. And when he could answer that question accurately, I was like, you have my support, kiddo, 1000%. If that's what you believe, that's what you want to do, you absolutely have my support. But if you're going to this protest because you think you're going to get out of drama class, that's not happening. That is not happening.
Right.
But if you know and you understand, and even at such a young age, he was got to be 10 at the time. If you feel that conviction, you feel something is wrong in your heart, like I got your back. Absolutely. I will help you fight for what you believe is right.
And I can agree with that. I mean, and that's something that I would definitely support. But here's the thing. You have to know, and I mean, not just feelings. And I want to hear what you know. Like, tell me what you think immigration law is, because I'm actually trying to put together a show about immigration law, and there's a immigration attorney that I'm trying to get a hold of, and there's actually somebody from the FBI that talks about and I didn't realize this. I mean, I heard this thing before, and I know these things, which is for example, a DUI. There's a difference between civil court, criminal court, and then there's different criminal courts. I didn't know that. But you have DMV court, which has its own judges and so forth. And then you have criminal court. So like, for example, if you have a DUI, there's two courts that you need to go to, which one is a criminal court for the DUI. And then there's a DNV court that you have to go to because your license is suspended. It's two entirely different things. Now, when I started diving into this thing about immigration, there's immigration court, and then there's criminal court. Now, immigration court is different than criminal court, and they have different rules and regulations. And I was like, that's interesting. That's interesting. So I started diving into that a little bit, and I'm working on it. I'm trying to get a show together, but there's a lot of background to check into. That's crazy. But those are things that we don't know. I mean, I didn't know any of those things, and the more I'm starting to find out, I'm like, ooh, this really does change some of my opinion about what I'm thinking, because
love that.
I want to learn. Along with knowledge comes a change of opinions, because now you're like, oh, I didn't know that. And that kind of changes my opinion a little bit. But, I still have a core thought process, and that we need to do certain things that are right for people. And then, we need to observe those rights. But at the same time, we need to follow the rules of the game. And the game is, is set in stone how they're played. And we're not supposed to, I'm going to just not look for it at these people, but I'm going to look for it at other people. No, we can't do that. But I think that the lack of education does these kinds of things, which is so dangerous to us in society, because maybe that woman, like you pointed out, was just not listening to what was being said. And because of that, that puts something that could be dangerous for women in general, for things like that. I'm not saying that that is something that should pass. I mean, because that's a whole religious thing, and I'm not trying to get into that part. But if that's what that religion believes in,
well, that's none of my business. If you're part of that religion, that's what you believe in. You, by all means, boo-boo, go ahead. You do you.
Right. But if you're trying to make that a core value of society,
no, I don't believe you should ever make decisions for other people. No.
100%. And that's something that I look at and say, I'm not well versed enough to say, as much as I want to say that I'm forward and upfront. I'm not about into jumping into your religion because I think differently. And like I said, I'm not a religious person, but at the same time, I can agree with a lot of what religions say. And then there's things that I just sit there going, nah, I don't think so. But
I got a lot of love and hate equally for religion. I think it made me a good person. I think I have a PTSD from it as well. So I got a lot to say about religion if we want to go there, but there's a lot of really good things. I think that it taught me a lot of really good morals, but also there was some bad also in religion. And it had a lot to do with what you said on that video, kind of holding women down a little bit, of restricting them. And so. And
that's
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Right. No. I appreciate that, because you know what? These are the conversations we have to have, because see, look, a lot of people look at me and think that, hey, you know what? You're Catholic or you're Christian, and I'm not. I was born and raised Buddhist, and not Buddha in a philosophy of Buddhism. It's a philosophy. It's not what most people think, which is like kind of like a Buddha, which is a particular kind of God, or what they see as a God. No, it's a philosophy. It's just the thought process of mind. And that frees me to believe things that I can look at this and go, wow, that's interesting. And I can apply that, and I can apply this, and I can apply that. So there's a lot of things that I look at in different religions that I look at and I say, wow, that's great. And I can agree with that. And then there's other things that I look at and say, okay, well, not for me. But I think the core of most religions, or all religions, are the same, which is just try to be peaceful and not be such an asshole, and just, try to treat the person next to you as well as you want to be treated by them.
Yeah,
Let it
absolutely. There's this book that I read called The Book of Joy. It is actually conversations between the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, two different religions, but they come together on the same exact concepts, about living a happy life. And they talk about dealing with stupid people too. Maybe I'll send you that chapter. But it's such a great book.
Yeah, I took a class, how to deal with difficult people. I took a class. And because I was dealing with a difficult coworker, so I asked my supervisor, who was just so happens to be Ben, who was in this chat. I asked him, send me to this, because this guy in my mind is like, he's such a pain in the ass for everything, and I wanted to do. And the crux of the class was, here's what you can do, here's what you can do, here's what you can do, here's what you can do. But then there was an ultimate end. It said, at some point, you have to come up with, there's just some people that you can't reach.
Yeah,
And I was,
that was always a difficult thing for me to grasp a little bit. I had a really hard time like letting go or just saying like enough's enough.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to push until the very, very end. When actually, like, you do have to really understand when it's like, you know what, actually, I'm not gonna get through to this person, you know, maybe in a year or two, and it doesn't demean them, or I don't think less of them. It's just the conversation's not gonna happen today. Yeah, that was a big lesson for me to learn, but it's made me a much happier person.
No, you're right. Because once you come to the age of realizing that you can't reach everybody, then you have a little bit of peace in it and understanding, like, okay, I can move forward from here, and I wish you the best, and I wish you well, and move the fuck on.
I also think I'm that somebody for somebody else. Like, one of my
No, you're not.
mentors, I could imagine that, like, they're just like, she's not getting this right now. Stop it, I love you.
No, but but I love the conversation and having it with people. And I just want to say that, look, as us together and understanding and having a common ground, we don't necessarily need to agree on every aspect. And, I can definitely appreciate a different point of view, because my view, there was Tyson, I don't remember that. There's a very famous physics a scientist who, and Tyson something, and I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry, it's evading me right now. But he says this great quote, which is, I'm smart enough to know what I'm talking about, but I'm also smart enough to know that I don't know everything. Yeah. And I'm like, that's enlightening, because at least I understand that, hey, you know what? I may not understand everything.
Neil deGrasse Tyson?
There you go, that guy. And I appreciate that quote, because you know what? That's how I took it when I was in negotiations, and when I would do other things, or when I was representing people as a union steward, or just talking to people. Because there was plenty of times where I looked at people and I just said, fuck, I can't do this with you. And people would look at me and say, man, John, thank you. I appreciate you listening to me. And I'm like, yeah, but then Jesus. And in my head, in my world, and I'm like, fuck, that was so hard to hear. And I'm glad that I helped you. But there's a piece of me that I filled your gap with a piece of me to help you become whole, realizing you got to realize I only have so many pieces to give.
Yes.
So I'm going to pull back. And that's why I got out of the union. And I said, after 25 years of being in the union, I pulled back and said, okay, I'm going to move forward, because I don't think I have enough pieces to give. And I need to start concentrating more on my family's peace and happiness. So I moved off of that, and, and then eventually I retired a few years later. But that's how I took it. I try to be the best person I can. I try to be a positive role model for people on any level. That's what we're supposed to do, right? Because you got to be as good a person as you can be, even when you're dealing with retarded people. No, I'm not. Fucking stupid people really kill me. But I just want to say thank you. That's the time we have. And again, we went a little bit over, and I was trying to keep it. It's just the conversation's too good. The conversation.
We just can't do it.
I appreciate everybody who came on. Thank you, everybody. Luce, Sherry, Ben, Jennifer, everybody, please, if I'm missing somebody, I apologize. Thank you guys all for coming up. Please make sure that you hit the like button. I just want to say thank you, Michelle June. I appreciate you coming on and the things that you said. Can you please let us all know where to find you and how we can follow you?
Yes, please. My name is Michelle June. You can follow me on Instagram. It's the most updated, at Michelle June Music. On Instagram, at Michelle June Music. I have a show this upcoming Saturday at the Paddock in Thousand Oaks at 6 p.m. I'll be performing at Oxnard Pride next Sunday on the 14th, and on Juneteenth on the 20th. June 20th for Juneteenth, I'll also be performing there at the Oxnard Plaza. So come check me out. Feel free to hit me up in my DMs. But most of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Big John. You're always the best.
Michelle June, thank you. Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you. I want to give a shout out to Cool Breeze out there. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't tell you in the first time, but let me tell you something. I do appreciate you guys coming up. Please smash that like button. Let people know that the content that you're hearing today is worth having. And I just want to say, again, reiterate, Michelle June, I appreciate you. I appreciate your opinions. And you got 3 dings today. That's awesome, but you lost 12-3. That's kind of what happens. You know, I'm sorry you come into the lion's den. This is what goes down. All right. No, I'm just saying, hey, I do appreciate you. And you made some very great points, and I appreciate your insight. And I want to definitely have you on again because there's some hot topics coming up, and I want your background on some of those things and talking about Sunday news. All right, everybody, you guys take care. Remember, what's most important is this. Everybody's entitled to my opinion, and that's why I freely give it. You guys take care. Appreciate it.
Everything must change.
Yeah, straight out university, the syllabus begins. Check the complex method that separates the men from the kids. We building with 4 pillars. Study the architecture, the lessons in the verses, not just the lecture. See the mind for the money, the muscle is the proof. That global frame is wisdom from the concrete to the roof. And the game is pure knowledge that defines your every action. A strategic satisfaction for a chemical reaction. It's a blueprint for power, not just a simple acquisition. The formula for greatness, a scholarly position. Straight out university, yeah, the lessons in session. Straight out university.